everyone, and a very warm welcome to the CNBC TV18.com and Microsoft Azure present Cloud Conversations, a series of industry focused roundtable conversations about the crucial role of cloud solutions in fostering agility and ensuring business continuity. And I'm your host, Ruchira Sharma. Going forward, in the current volatile scenario, businesses and services have withstood the tides of disruption by rethinking their business models. In this exciting roundtable conversation with industry leaders and domain experts, we will explore and examine the transformational impact of cloud technologies and their role in accelerating the growth, specifically of the banking sector. As the COVID 19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns confined people to their homes, fintech came to the rescue. Contactless payments have emerged as an essential solution for all of us, whether it's ordering food or essential purchases to personal finance. And all this has been enabled by new age disruptive technologies. So, going forward, what are the challenges and the opportunities for the BFSI sector, specifically in context with digital solutions? And that is what we are going to be discussing today. So, before we deep dive into this conversation and find out how do banks and fintechs automate the automation, innovate, and reinvent, let me begin by introducing our esteemed panelists. I have with me here Mr. Prashant Jadhav, Head IT Development, Prabhudas Niladhar,
Hi guys.
Mr. Narayan Subramaniam, CIO, Swasti Microfinance,
Hello, hello.
Mr. Rajiv Banerjee, National Insurance Company Limited, Kersi Tavaria, CIO, Bombay Stock Exchange Limited, Kiran Dubey, CEO, Care Risk Solutions Private Limited,
Hi guys.
Ms. Chinu Sekri, Director, Solution Sales, Microsoft India,
Good afternoon, everyone.
and Mr. Rahul Agarwal, CTO, Capri Global Capital Limited. All right, so thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Rahul. Financial services need to take a hard look at the business models to identify new opportunities. So, how does an organization really keep pace with the ever changing face of technology?
See, for me, like I'm a CTO there, so and I've been into technology for the last 18 years. So I would say technology today is not something which is a leverage, a luxury. This is like a 101 for us and for everybody. It is not something that you try to change yourself or you try to keep a pace up to it. But yes, if you have to survive, you have to up your game and you have to see that how you can adopt technology to solve business problem. And again, for me, like I am a techie to the core, but I still believe that any technology which is not serving a business problem, it actually fades. So at in our company as well, what we try to do is with technology, we try to solve the business problems first. First, we define the problem, and then we see how technology can play an important role to it. Be it building our data lake system, be it how to cater our customers, how to provide them more and more visibility and transparency with data, with connectivity, more services. So
Mhm.
we are adopting technology at every place, be it our machine learning, artificial intelligence models, be it providing lot and lot tools to the customers, and more importantly, the heart, which is my sales team, my my in-house customers, which are my KP people, that I am providing them tools to cut down the time, to go
All right.
paperless, to go green to IT. So this is like a one-on-one to us, and we are transforming ourselves very rapidly from a traditional NBFC to a pure play fintech.
All right. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that insight there. Mr. Kiran, what would you like to add to this? What is your learning and insight, and how did you keep pace with the changing face of new age technology?
So, as a banking arena, a lot of technologies are changing. So, from the compliance perspective, we have to take care of the thin line between customer satisfaction and fraud, and also the compliance perspective when it comes to the BFSI sector. They are exposed to real currency. So we
All right.
also have to see that early warnings, anything that happens in the globe, relevant sectorial factors, how quickly we can bring to the bank through adoption of technologies like cloud. Like Rahul said, that we want to quickly service a lot of customers. The sales team would like to have very thin line, and one of the areas which is very important is how compliance comes to the front end to help them out. And technology is the biggest game changer in this last 4 quarters that we have seen.
Definitely. All right. And Mr. Narayan, I would like to come to you for the next question. How does one really address the dual challenge of innovation and also facing dynamic competition? And in your from your own learnings or user case scenarios, what do you think? How can one develop a successful technology and innovation strategy? Could you hear me, sir, Mr. Narayan?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes. Go on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so technology and the toolkits that technology has created and made available have become very democratized. So
All
everybody
right.
has access to all kinds of technology right now. Every organization has access to all the tools because of models like cloud and SaaS. And
Mm-hmm.
there are the use of earlier, I would say maybe 5 years ago, AI and ML was developed as a concept in-house, and you needed a lot of understanding and you needed specialized people to be able to do that. But currently, these have become available to everybody and democratized. And we have our own in-house technology called Swastik, and it's significantly driven through AI and ML. So at Swasti, our focus has been innovation in the intersection of process and technology, how we
All right.
make the right tools available at the right time at the right place. That is the problem that we are trying to solve. So the important thing to remember is that technology for us is only as smart as its relevance and application in our people-centric business. Microfinance, as you are aware, is a very high volume customer business, and it's a high feet on street business. So every new technology that we adopt, every new innovation that we embrace must not only solve the problem, but it should add value to our processes. It must help improving our ease of business and customer relationships in the long.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Kersey, I'd like to come to you here. How did you address the dual challenges that you faced, whether it was about innovation or addressing competition? And how did you meet your short term efficiency with long term effectiveness, especially in the post pandemic world?
First of all, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, fine. See, post-pandemic, I would not really. Post-pandemic, the only thing which has happened is post-pandemic. I would say is people are now asking for a lot of new solutions.
All right.
Innovations were happening earlier also, but not with the pace with which the IT wanted the users to use it. Now there is an overwhelm. Now the dynamics have reversed. Now people are asking more innovations from the ITs,
Mhm.
and that's the good thing for all the CIOs or the IT folks. Like, so that's a big difference. That is the only change the pandemic has brought in. That is what I feel personally, because people were doing innovations even earlier, but like the previous speaker just mentioned, the
Mhm.
effectiveness and the use and helping the masses, that
All right.
concept was not very much there. But now any small innovation that we do,
Mhm.
unless it reaches the masses and makes either it improves your process efficiencies, or it improves your customer experience, or it improves and bringing your downtimes,
All
or
right.
improving your uptimes. I think all those things put together makes the entire ecosystem very good. So there's a very thin line between short term, long term
Mhm.
innovation and operations. I think we are all now a very blended thing, so there is nothing like innovation, any process improvement that you do, I would classify it as. So these are all intermingling words, I would say. Everybody
All
uses
right.
anything anywhere, like so long as it improves your customer experience, I would say. Anything that you do, any process improvement that you put in, any technological improvement, you change something or you innovate something which you may not necessarily call it an innovation. It's a new idea, it's a new
Mhm.
process. So it's technically it's not an innovation, like, but it's like the process improvement. So again,
All right.
So normally
Yes.
innovation is always related to something physical product which you touch, feel, and see. Like
Mhm.
so that's what people call it innovation. I call it ideas also as innovations, like no, innovative
Absolutely.
ideas. So that's where
Very.
I think so most of us work in that area. So if we change some process, if a good idea, if a process that we're doing, try and do it, just tweak a process, and you get a significant improvement in your performance. And this is what we continually do. So for
All right.
us, innovation is nothing but a continuous journey. Like every day we are doing some innovation. I would put it that way. We're trying to
All
tweak
right.
something which is working fine. Nobody has told you, but we still try to push the
Mhm.
barometer. Can we make it still better? Can we make it still better? So that drive has to be there from within. It need not always be
Absolutely.
customer driven or something like that. So that is the way we look at when we do things in BSc. Like, no, let's because nobody has told us everybody is happy with the performance, but we are always unsatisfied with the performance. So to drive innovations, I think you have to be a little unsatisfied yourself. The moment you
Absolutely.
become complacent, innovation will stop working. So in that sense, I'm
No.
a quite a dissatisfied person. So
No, no, no. That was very well spoken, and it's true. Customers, people are in fact at the core of all processes and technology, and that is what sums it up for all of us. But Mr. Rajiv and Mr. Prashant, I'd like to come to you for the next one. Um, uh, Organizations, especially financial organizations, have dramatically evolved in the way that they function, especially with the advent of new age technologies such as analytics, AI, and machine learning. So, how did you introduce the best processes to enable digital adoption at an increased pace, but across the organization? So we can't hear you.
Ah, Before we even talk about AI ML, I will just come back to what the previous speakers were giving on
Sure.
saying about adoption of the cloud. The see cloud is the game changer in the current scenario, and with the cloud, the capabilities it brings, be it the infrastructure as a service, or a software as a service, or a platform as a service. Okay, that is the beginning driving the change in industry, and the
All right.
capabilities that are also inbuilt in the cloud that you can actually tweak a cloud to have serverless application deployed, or a microservice deployed.
Mhm.
These are the things that it's bringing out, the industry is bringing about. But what is preventing, and I speak with my friends across the industry, typically in the public sector from the background. See, the
All right.
security of the cloud becomes is a real cause of concern. See,
Mhm.
unlike in a traditional setup,
All right.
when I had everything within my perimeter, I do point deployments, build a layered network, deploy the traditional IPSs, firewalls, application securities. Maybe it
Okay.
go down to the user level, deploy, do data classification, DLPs, information rights management. All things I can do within my perimeter. But in the cloud, basically the challenge comes is the cloud is a term, but the
Mhm.
cloud is again broken into these silos, be it
Absolutely.
IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. Okay. So
Mhm.
end of the day, if it's an IaaS, up to the hypervisor level, it's the responsibility of the cloud service provider. Above that, it's my responsibility. And that starts from the operating system up to the user access and the data that resides within it.
Mhm.
Be it a software as a service, that my responsibility becomes lower. It's only about user access and data. But see,
Yes.
the ultimate concern, the question was coming to our previous speaker about compliance and the challenges that come with the cloud. Okay, see, this issue is a misconfiguration. The real
All
challenge
right.
in a cloud is one, it's easy to deploy, but is again is
Mhm.
very easy to create one mistake. There's
All
the
right.
right skill set to deploy services in the cloud has
Mhm.
to be there for an organization to move to the cloud.
Absolutely.
Because
And that
even
is
in
actually, yes.
yeah, please go on. Yeah.
No, no, that's fine. I was saying that that is our next question. It is about
So as
reevaluating
I was saying,
skills.
see the rebadging of skills, and then the technology mix completely changes. So
Absolutely.
what traditional solutions we used to deploy within the network, the solution
Mhm.
landscape changes when I'm going to the cloud.
All right.
The type of
So,
solutions required changes when it goes to the cloud. Then there's a concern of data sovereignty and those things that come in case of public sector requirements or the government requirements. So these things come in. So
definitely.
While cloud is very, we all look forward to the cloud, but then again, most of the public sector is taking baby steps because of this.
All right. Mr. Prashant, what is your insight here?
The earlier speaker, I would like to add up, he was also trying to come to a point where people becomes a challenge. Skill set of the people becomes the challenge. Correct.
Yes.
So reskilling and upskilling of existing workforce, while it happens, we should also look at, the new set of technologies which are riding on APIs, API integration, different, skill sets altogether. So in this era, business strategies are driven by business analytics and targeted marketing, backed by some data analytics. So these kind of reskilling, upskilling, for data processing, data warehousing, all that comes in.
All right.
So this is how we are trying to reevaluate our existing workforce.
Okay, great. Mr. Narayan, and I'd like to come to you. Could you share your insight about how did you use new age technologies like AI and machine learning to not only serve the best processes to our customers, but also enable innovation across the organization?
Yeah, thanks. So I probably answer your question through explanation of how things work at our organization. I'm trying, like I mentioned before, we are a high customer and high employee feet on street business. So my employee, who's a collection officer, who goes and wants to meet 100 customers on a single day, has about 5 minutes to spend with customers in a group of 5 people. But before he goes and engages with them, he should be ideally prepared for what is going to come and face him. He needs to know the challenges that he might face. There might be one customer in that group who is not able to pay money. He needs to understand what might be happening, and when he gets into that meeting for 5 minutes, he needs to be prepared with the data. So what is currently happening is that there is a flood of information. There is a lot of information that is available. Information related to the customer that I hold as a company, information related to the customer that is available in the public domain in the form of credit bureau reports, information about the industry, opinions from industry bodies, and risk indicators, etc. All of this has to be concisely given at the point of contact to the CRM or the person who's engaging with the customer, and I have to find a way of making sure that I predict what question is going to arise and what answer is available. So AI and ML is very critical to this process, to this ability to predict and the ability to crunch a large set of data and ultimately conclude and bring a piece of information that is relevant at that particular context. So for us, it's about building a solution that will help our CRM at the point of contact with the customer to get the right data, to make the right data available to them. So that's our focus.
All right. Thank you so much. I'd like to come to you, Ms. Shinu, now. You at Microsoft are helping customers resolve various challenges. So according to you, what are the major challenges for customers and how are you really helping them overcome?
So thanks. And I'll pick up from what Narayanan said, right? The biggest challenge I think the entire sector is facing that the customer expectations have changed drastically, right? What you were mentioning, right? How do we need to understand what's the profile of the customer? Is he financially viable? Can I immediately process what he needs, right? So I think the customers have started to expect a consistent service and experience across channels, right? Whether it's digital or in person. And hence, one challenge that this industry is facing is how do they skill and empower their employees to understand this change in customer behavior, right? Digital channels have become more important than ever, and we will continue to rely on those channels. And hence, how do we deliver those differentiated customer experiences? And so the biggest success mantra we as Microsoft believe, and we've had multiple conversations with our customers, is to how do we adjust to the changed environment and have the right engagement mix for customers, which is around digital, which is around self-service, which is around how do we enable our contact center employees to provide that consistent personalized support to the customers. So at Microsoft, I think we have a lot of these solutions based on cloud. And they have an industry proven technology. Our solutions, some of the solutions like Microsoft Dynamics 365, Sales and Customer, Power BI, Microsoft 365, they help build customer insights through data aggregation framework. which helps unify data from different sources into one seamless screen. And then they give you this customer intelligence
Correct.
through these statistical modeling tools like Azure machine learning, etc., to predict the future behavior so that we can be very well prepared. The second challenge, which I think a lot of my co-panelists also spoke about, is around the regulations. So the industry is experiencing a lot of regulatory scrutiny today, right? And it's unprecedented. The intensity is very high. And so
Yes.
regulatory compliance is having a profound effect on business models of our financial institutions. And regulatory compliance and risk management will remain a top priority, and that's what we are hearing today as well. So we as Microsoft and even our partners, we provide financial institutions with a lot of innovative risk solutions that help deepen your risk insights and help ensure compliance with the regulatory environment. In fact, Azure is one of the clouds that covers 91 compliance offerings. It is the deepest and the most comprehensive compliance coverage in the industry. And we also provide with a lot of innovative financial crime solutions that protect your organizations and the customers while lowering the compliance cost so that you are able to meet and quickly onboard your customers, identify the malicious users, and ensure legitimate transactions are happening. So that's what I would have to say.
Great. So actually, thank you for that, Chinu. That is our next question. That the biggest challenge for banks and fintechs is how to balance technology with compliance framework. So any of you can take this. How can banks streamline operations through disruptive technologies? What are your learnings with respect to this? And how are you managing risk and cybersecurity? Mr. Kersi, Mr. Rahul, you can go ahead. Any of you.
So,
Hello.
see, yeah. So, couple of things on the cybersecurity. First of all, is this access to the data, and of course, there's a PII which is has a, like a big noise in the market. That how do we ensure that my customer data, which is a personal identifier information, it is secure and only the handful of people with the right access are are using the data. So a lot can be done. Lot can be done. A lot has been doing on this part. In fact, the cloud has, be it Microsoft, be it Google, be it AWS, all they have come for the rescue of it. That earlier it was like all the databases were like access to like so many people, and then everybody was just in the case that anybody has access to almost every data. But now people have started build for the cyber security of the data, especially for the PII and other critical information. People have started building the data lakes so that they can marry multiple databases, and then they can provide the right ACL, and so that people are accessing all the data, but
Mhm.
only the data they need. They are not using, they are not able to see any user identifier information. And then a lot of technologies are being implemented help with the big help of clouds as well. Where take example of your call center systems, where a lot of people in BFSI also, that they have to call their customers, be it for the sales or be it for the service.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
using the predictive dialing and proactive
Predict.
dialings, my sales guys are just clicking a button to connect to the customer. They are not seeing the phone number, they are not seeing the email ID,
Yes.
and they are being in the back, they are able to do all the things. So that is, I think, when we talk about cybersecurity, of course, one of my panelists here, they also talked about uh, all the network layer access control, be it your security groups, ports, and all ISEC tunnels, all those things. But yes, data is one thing which I think everybody is so scared of that it should not go out. When people are
Correct.
when people are saving the credit card numbers and everything, then PCI DSS compliance has to be
Yes.
made. We all do almost KYC. Every organization are doing KYCs. They are doing OCR checks on Aadhaar, or they are doing like Aadhaar verification. Good part is the government has government has put in the regulation that okay, while you're doing the Aadhaar verification, okay, you can do everything. You cannot store the Aadhaar if you're not meeting the DigiLocker compliance.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So,
Thank you for
yeah.
that. Yes. Mr. Kersi, would you like to share something here, your insight on this?
A slightly different industry than the banking. So, like when you're doing the capital markets. So, for us, the cybersecurity, we are more focused on the user behavior analysis, like because
Okay.
like not only the access to the data is critical, but also the behavior of the critical staff. Even we
Mm-hmm.
monitor so all the critical informations, all the processes, the people who
Mm-hmm.
are operations who operate critical operations. We also uh, monitor those operations, their activities in continuously throughout 24/7. So even at that level, so because any of the security breaches, one has to
True.
remember it starts from inside out and not from outside in. I mean that is the
Absolutely.
basic thumb rule, like that you have to try and see. Though you may trust your staff, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't trust. But from a cyber security, don't trust it because you don't know whether his PC is the intention of that guy could be good, but he does not know that his PC is compromised. It could happen. Okay, so that is the reason why we believe that we don't trust anybody. I mean, that is the way we function.
Mm-hmm.
Including myself, I am not trusted. Including my even the senior man, my MDs are not trusted. So we monitor every single user's behavior. So whatever the patterns, the critical operations, the endpoints. So that's so like the previous example what was being talked about at a help desk at a call center. We
Mm-hmm.
also a system like if anybody without a ticket is anybody trying to get the information of a customer. Normally,
Mm-hmm.
only if the customer calls, you try to get his details. So even we try and see how many. So we focus a
Right.
lot on this internal user behaviors. These are typically things where things can get leaked out because
Sure.
typically a call center guy or help desk guy is like you
Mm-hmm.
might want to see a guy's balance. Suppose if somebody says, but he has an access to the customer calls. Now
All right.
we at times correlate that did the customer call to know his balance. Like you might get into, you might verify, but why did you? You can also call up and check the address of the
All right.
customer. So these kind of behavioral checks are also very, very important. So something on these lines that we do take pains to do. It's a very, I would say,
Sure.
it's a painful task, but I think it's necessary to do this kind of stuff.
All right. Our other panelists are also keen to add their insights here. So we can start with you, Mr. Narayanan. You can share your insight, and then we go to the others as well.
Yeah, so from a cybersecurity perspective, we are looking at customer data protection. I
Mm-hmm.
think a couple of things have been accelerated dramatically during post pandemic. One is digital identification. We don't rely on physical documents anymore. We rely on digital documents with multiple sources of corroboration.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing that has been accelerated is this whole aspect of working remotely and not physically. Both of these are great from a perspective of efficiency, and they are great from a perspective of being able to do larger volumes and scale that you could not have done earlier. But then that also opens things up for security issues. Digital identity theft is a reality that we need to be worried about. I'm sure you're tracking what has happened in the last 2-3 weeks in
Mm-hmm.
terms of misreporting of a key identifier. Like for example, somebody takes your Aadhaar card and then they get a loan under your Aadhaar card, and then they default, and then now the default is on your head, and then it takes about 3 months for you to figure out how to resolve that issue, and then to be able to restore all of these things. So the onus as an NBFC for us is to be it's on ensuring that the transaction is done with the right person, and the transaction information that has been captured is validated, corroborated with multiple sources and multiple different points of time. And we are able to store all this information securely, and we make sure that there is no way that this information goes out of the company. So customer data protection is the core at which core thing that we want to address. It's both compliance and security at the same time for us.
All right. Great. Mr. Prashant, you also wanted to share your insights on cybersecurity and compliance. So go ahead.
Yeah, about the cyber security and compliance, no, like the earlier speaker said, uh, like you can ensure data security, but you will also have to ensure the personal behaviors and the uh, person's access to the data can be
All
controlled,
right.
but person's behavior cannot be controlled. So that is also an important angle. Plus,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays there are ISMS ISMS standard security protocols, etc., which are being followed. So most of the times we can say data is secure, but again it
Right.
has to be backed by the compliance properly, like some Aadhaar masking, PAN masking, etc.
Sure. All right. Mr. Rajiv and Mr. Kiran, you also had some insights here. Please go ahead one by one.
See, ultimately, it's about see the application. Whatever application you are deploying, it has to be a role-based access control. Okay.
Yes.
Now, with the pandemic, what we found was when people were logging with the VPNs, in our
Mm-hmm.
organization, what we did was we had corporate devices, we allowed access to them only. Then
All
the
right.
concept of zero trust network access came up. And we had implemented zero trust network access through a network access control model maybe around a decade back. And that has
All right.
now been, the technology has now been more fine grained. You have context aware access, you have user and entity behavior analysis, and you all integrate with your existing SIM or the source solution. You
All
orchestrate the
right.
security layer and actually deploy solutions so that anybody who is doing a mistake, see a user who is coming from Mumbai, my user who is coming from Mumbai over an internet cannot be
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously coming in from Calcutta. Okay.
Yes.
Or my user who is typically logs in at say 10:30 in the morning and
Mm-hmm.
logs off at say 5 or 6 in the evening. Suddenly I find that he is logged in at 8 in the evening.
Mm.
So that is a deviation. So solutions are in play to actually flag this and take it to the next level so that this can be analyzed, or maybe block that port, block the network connection, do a deep dive analysis, give a user a call, throw a multi-factor authentication to that user. So all these things are already in play. All organizations are deploying them because at the crux is what is the user accessing, and ultimately graduate that access. A user logging at say 5 in the his normal behavior, he has access to this. He's logging it at odd hours, he will get access to this only. He is logging from a personal device, his
All right.
access is segregated
Sure. Sure.
to some typical apps that in which my data leakage conditions, I mean, the threats go away. So
Definitely.
graduated access, graduated controls, you are actually throwing them up. You push in multi-factor authentication. You have a sort of thing in play. And with cloud, this also gets easier.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Kiran, you also had something to say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, good to hear from the compliance perspective. We spoke about more on the digital or the cybersecurity piece. But there's a
All right.
large problem for a lot of banks and fintechs, which is coming up, is the regulatory and the compliance. And one of the major areas where we are looking at cloud, or our
Mm-hmm.
customers are looking at cloud, is to bring a risk as a service. So
All
when
right.
we talk about a lot of things, one of the most important areas in fraud is syndicated fraud, and,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and there is no platform currently which is doing the network analysis, default ratios, trying to find out what are the sectors under stress. So one
Mm-hmm.
of the largest thing what the Reserve Bank or the central banks across the globe are expecting is to
All right.
build a robust regulatory and compliance system, which is the
Mm-hmm.
credit risk system, and also whatever are your internal understandings, they should be brought forward. So risk or compliance aspects are coming more towards as a decision process system, and
All right.
what we look towards the kind of, and if we see in Azure or Google, what most of the
Mm-hmm.
BFSI sectors are trying to bring the robust risk and compliance regulatory format more into decision processes, like early warning system which would predict today that okay fine, this particular sector is under a heavy stress. Those data
Mm-hmm.
points need to be brought in, and that is one area where we see. Secondly, we are also seeing in this fintech era where a lot of fintechs are coming in. The central banks across the globe have
All right.
started putting compliance into place. So now, if you see very recently, the Basel committees, the Basel compliance, which was not given a stress, it is already there in fintechs, and fintechs are not in a position, because fintechs are the backbone of quick lending. They do not have the potential, or they do not want to get into those kind of investment for end to end implementing those risk solutions. So one of the important factor where I feel cloud is playing globally a big part, where we have
Mm-hmm.
seen, and also in India in the upcoming areas,
All right.
is risk as a service. where credit risk as a service, or probably my reporting, because finally you will do business only till the licenses exist. The license will exist only when you comply, and compliance has become so. We are seeing so much of traction from fintechs, from small cooperative banks.
Mhm.
Where core banking has also started, or small DLPs have started as a service. Core banking has started as a service. Reason being, a lot of these fintechs are going into banks. Like we can say, I mean, most of them have gone for banking licenses. What of the one of the biggest area where AI and ML and data lakes, whatever we talk about, will get into a single standalone decision process system and
Right.
compliance reporting. So expected, so whatever exposures are there in the future, and they're already being done by the central bank. I see there a huge gap, because one, would you anybody would like to invest into big risk and compliance solutions? No. They want just that small piece or the layer, which will be the problem resolution for them, not only to comply but also to use it in the decision process system.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And you spoke about fintech. So my next question is about the impact on the legacy business model of banks, and how can they partner with the new age players to create an ecosystem that kind of promotes India's digital economy, and what are the challenges hindering this collaboration? Mr. Kirsi,
So,
Mr. Narayan, yeah, go on.
sorry.
Go on.
Yeah. So, see, a lot of this is going to be platformized, and I'm seeing already a lot of fintechs collaborating themselves on the clouds like Azure. And why are they becoming popular? Suppose I'm a lending platform and I want to get into multiple markets, and somebody has developed a robust model on, say, agriculture. So, a lot of fintechs are already sharing a lot of strengths across. So that's one
All right.
area which is coming up big time, and we are already seeing a lot of traction what is happening
All
around
right.
that. Second is the AIML and the robust modelings,
Mhm.
which are already built by this. So one is the share. Second, something like a core banking, or the core processes as a service,
All
is
right.
is really going to help the fintechs in future.
Great. Ms. Shinu, I would like to come to you at this point. You want to share your insights here? And I also have another question for you.
Yes, I think I wanted to pick up from what Kiran was saying, right? Two things. One, of course, the smaller part, of course, and it's important is security breaches. So, as
Mm,
you rightly said, right, while it's easy to understand the concept of security breaches and attacks, identifying them is another issue, right? And that's why, the solutions that we offer include simulation training to better
mm,
see and understand what constitutes a potential threat, including
all
phishing,
right.
malware, fraudulent checks. For example, today only, the way we are trained in Microsoft is I got a mail
Mm,
which said that, that the topic said, this is a security, you got to install this for a security posture to
right.
be complete. And it was a
Mm,
test mail to train the employees within Microsoft to see whether they actually open that mail, check the mail ID, is it the right mail or not. So those
all
kind
right.
of trainings become extremely very important. That's one. And
All
then,
right.
of course, to further protect data, rules can be applied. We have Azure Active Directory to ensure authorized individuals only kind of get that. But to the larger point on, getting the fintechs up and running, I think
Mm,
what Mr. Kiran very rightly said, hyperscalers like Azure are coming up with those offerings where we
mm,
don't have to spend time complying to those hundreds of compliances, because each and every organization is now a global organization. There are India specific compliances, there are European compliances, etc. So we have
okay.
developed a very specific cloud which is built on the tenet of serving the financial sector, and that's called Azure for Financial Sector. And that
All right.
covers the entire gamut of whatever is needed to have the organization up and running faster with all those regulations and compliances in place.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that insight there, Shinu. But Ms. Shinu, cloud computing, of course, as you mentioned, is enabling a variety of industry is across sectors to do a lot of stuff that they never thought of. So, tell us a little more about your initiatives in empowering employees, especially in the remote and hybrid setups, and how are you really providing greater agility to business processes by doing this?
So see, the art of possible is immense with cloud, and that's what Rajiv also mentioned. You want to reinvent payments, you want to combat crime, you want to manage risk, compliance, modernize system. It's like immense. And I'll pick up a few examples. So with a lot of customers, what we are doing is we are developing a modern data estate by moving the applications and the data to the cloud, where we are leveraging our data lake storage, data lake solutions, which are built on our SQL database. And thanks to the interoperability that we see between our Power BI, cognitive services, and machine learning, we are able to deliver cloud powered AI and advanced analytics to these customers. And what is it giving them? They are able to operate with much more agility, stability, and flexibility, right? So that's one thing which can be done with the cloud. The second thing is, I think, for all the organizations to better serve their end customers, we got to empower the developer organization a lot more, right? And so we got to ensure a higher developer velocity index. So with GitHub that we've acquired, we as Microsoft are champions of open source, open standards, and open data models. We are the only ones that can support the entire gamut of modern application development, whether you want to modernize your legacy apps or build cloud native apps or integrate data and AI into your apps. Everything can be done. We have the right tools for the right jobs to get the work done. And in that sense, we are able to enable the developers actually to focus on high value tasks and ensure that they accelerate the delivery of the cloud based solutions. The third very important thing which is there is, how do we enable organizations like yours for a hybrid multi-cloud environment, because it's never going to be a pure public cloud environment, right? So whether you're on-prem, whether you're on the cloud, how do we enable that? um, Azure has been developed keeping that in mind. You have the flexibility to optimize architectures, leveraging cloud services best suited for your specific needs. So you can select services based on features. Our hybrid offerings like the Azure Arc, Azure Stack HCI, and us having the largest data center footprint on the planet, you can design your multi-cloud deployments to achieve that short-term flexibility while having a long-term agility, and you also end up avoiding a vendor lock-in. One of the esteemed panelists also touched upon the point of data sovereignty, which is becoming more and more of a challenge as the businesses are moving to cloud. So hybrid cloud approach can solve many of these challenges on data sovereignty. You can maintain your status quo with your own customers while you follow the regulation laws with the customers. And so hybrid cloud solutions are really, really key in achieving that. And then, of course, sharing a customer example, we have one of the capital management banks as our customers, and they used our Azure virtual desktop solution to ensure that how do they have on a remote work environment their employees enabled all the time while ensuring that the data is secure and protected. So that's the art of possible. I can keep going on and on, but I just wanted to share a few of the key aspects of cloud for financial services.
No. Very well spoken and absolutely true. So we spoke about modernizing payments, we spoke about reskilling, and now coming to another very important and crucial aspect before we wind up, and that is, of course, the customer. So each one of you can take this one by one. What are the game-changing technologies that have enabled you build customer relationships, and how would you like to highlight the role of new age technologies in the banking sector to achieve differentiated customer experiences? We can start with you, Mr. Narayanan, and each of you can go one by one. Mr. Kersey, Mr. Narayanan.
Thank you. So I think three things have happened in the recent past, which have changed our perspective on how technology is engaging with the customer. Number one is the availability of smartphones in every household. You should remember that microfinance is dealing with people who are expecting loans of 40,000 rupees to 80,000 rupees. They have average household income of 20,000 rupees to 40,000 rupees. This is my customer segment. Suddenly, smartphones have cropped up in every single household thanks to the pandemic. Then, as I mentioned earlier, I think digitalization of identity through Aadhaar and voter ID cards have cropped up, and the universal availability of credit records and digital credit records at that. These are the three significant changes that I've seen in the landscape, and this has made us alter our approach to the customers. The customer is also expecting, I think somebody else mentioned earlier, that the level of services that the customer is expecting has changed and has increased. So my microfinance customer is expecting services like they would be a banking customer. So it's important for me to engage and deliver it in that fashion. So we are looking at scale, we are looking at volume, and we are looking at being able to turn around customer, lending or serving customers without being very intrusive. Currently, the microfinance model is very, very significantly brick and mortar oriented with technology as a support layer. We want to change that approach. We want to convert that into a significantly technology approach with a little bit of brick and mortar added to it. That's the significant change that we are looking at.
All right. Mr. Kersey, what's your take here?
I would just say, give you just a brief figure. Pre-pandemic, say maybe 20, the amount of young youth who were registered for in the capital markets was hardly less than 2%. But in these 2 years, our number of people who are registered with the capital markets, the individuals, have grown up double. Like no, it was roughly around 4.5 crores. Now it's close to 9 crores, 10 crores.
In the
So
last
the last
2 years,
2 years,
the record.
in just last 2 years, this many 4 crore new people have got added into the capital markets. All this was because during this time, a lot of new technologies came in, a lot of broking houses, a lot of capital market players started giving online registrations and e-KYC and all these processes which were introduced, okay, which has helped. And as we speak, the number of people in the age group of less than 20 is almost 8 to 9% of these investors are people in the age group of who never were even interested in getting into or touching the capital markets. So we try to think this, what is the kind of, we're getting a complete new segment of clients coming into the capital markets. Earlier, the capital markets, people were almost who were above 30, 25, 30, 30 between 30 to 40 was the peak. People would be there in the markets, 30 to 50 was the age range. Now, today is one significant 10% of the people who are less than 20 years, I'm talking about 18 to 20. So that is a big
20,
thing.
25, yes. All right. Great.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'll
Rajiv?
continue.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. I'll continue with him. Like you said, the number of customers, what the doubling rate was almost close to 10 years, which has brought down to 2 years to double the customers. And maybe we believe with the coming 3 year, coming 1 year or 1.5 years only, it would be doubled. And
Yes.
like he rightly said, this is a customer mix is changing completely, which is queuing towards the millennial customers, which these kind of customers, they need easy to use do it yourself stuff,
Yes.
wherein these new technologies will come in and help us to cater these kind of customers. Another, continuing to the banking ka challenges, banking with banking embracing this new open architecture technologies or maybe API based services, they're trying to come in. We also, I represent broking industry. I can give a use case wherein earlier people used to give us checks. Now the transactions in terms of net banking are going higher. Earlier, servicing these kind of clients, time frame was like 24 to 48 hours, which has come down to, let's say, half an hour's time, because banks have exposed APIs like that. So this is another success case, you can say, because of banks embracing this new kind of open architectures.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Kiran, would you like to add something here?
Sure. So we are into the business of providing solution to the fintechs and the banking world. So as rightly said by all of you, customers, you're our customers, and customer is changing. So what we would like to enhance technology is to provide a better decision process system to quick lending. And one of the sectors which we are heavily working on is non-conventional lending. So technologies which can bring image analytics, which can on the fly evaluate your credit or probably your fraud evaluation on the fly when you take a decision, instead of not retrospective after taken the decision. So one of the thing what we are seeing is, yes, customer are changing, and that's where we are providing lot of aspects onto those solutions. Second, as I keep on repeating, that not only we want our customers to do more business than get stuck into the activities like getting complied and the regulatory reporting. So we are providing already with multiple solutions on providing all those aspects. And early warning system is one more system which we are defined very strongly, which is, the default before it happens. Can I give something to the customer, whose customers might become a default to protect their NPS? And actually, in the world of fintechs where movements are happening very fast, this decision process system has to be very fast. And we are looking towards the cloud environments to give us a lot of flexibility, because fraud keeps on changing. And
Absolutely.
the bigger fraud which impacts is the syndicated fraud. So if there is anything across the globe, those globe aspects which we are capturing already in the early warning systems, if we can bring that to the table, will help speeden up the decision process for the fintechs to go ahead. And the unconventional sector, because as such we seen the market is shrunk. There are 100, suppose 100 people with good credit, they are already being approached by 200 people because of the
Definitely.
fintech world. So how do I increase this 100 people's market to 500 people's market, to get
All right.
more better credit to something using unconventional methods of rating credit, is where the
All
cloud is going to go further. The biggest example is Africa. If you look at Africa, they have gone already for this non-conventional methods of credit analysis. Thank you.
great. Thank you. Thank you. So just before we sum up, Ms. Chinu, would you like to add something? How to build differentiated customer experiences? And Mr. Rajiv after that.
Yeah, so I think everyone, I think the top of mind in this was about customers. We're doubling customer base in the last 2 years. Customers are looking for differentiated experiences, and I think who will deliver them? It is going to be our own teams, our frontline workers, our employees. So I think
Mhm.
my closing would be that how do we enable and skill our frontline workers, who could be either our call center specialists or our branch managers or the tellers,
Mhm.
or the people on the field, to ensure that they are able to rapidly respond to customer needs,
Mhm.
maintain the security and organizational data and resources. I think that will be very critical as we move ahead in the post pandemic world, and acquire and build new customer relationships.
All right. Thank you for that closing note there. Mr. Rahul and Mr. Rajiv, last closing comments from both of you.
So see, very simple. The way the technology is being used by customers. One of my friend here also mentioned that, okay, mobile phones are here, and data of like Aadhaar or bureau data, all this has helped to actually reach to the customer better. But also a lot of things has happened very interestingly in the last 5 7 years. The way our payment system has increased, like UPI has become the backbone. So
Yeah.
nobody talks about today that how I'm going to take the payment from the customer. Secondly, the way our government has opened up the data in a regulated manner. So like I'm able to do KYCs, I'm able to do eKYCs, be it EPFO checks, be it employer checks, or do I have to do INPS, penny drop? So
Yes.
that is helping, along with the power of course, cloud. It is helping to innovate better. You see, like banks, either they are opening up like open banking or self-service banking, or they are using some other fintechs help, and they are becoming new banks. If I take a small example of us, Capri Global, so one of
Mhm.
our lending basket, which is home loan for salary people, in next couple of
All right.
months, we would be transforming it to complete paperless than from the electric file.
Mhm. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mr. Rahul. And Mr. Rajiv, what are your closing comments about creating and building differentiated and personalized customer experiences?
A lot many things going on in my mind. So one thing is, from an organization perspective, yes, we have during this pandemic stage we have deployed inspection apps so that the customer can actually inspect his automobile or and upload the videos on our sites, and we can from our locations we can actually access the videos and take a call on the claims part of it. This is one.
Mhm.
Number two, but more importantly, see, we are talking about digitalization and the movement of the fintech world to the cloud and the digital space. More so in a country where the smartphone has become ubiquitous, and a 20,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees or even a 5,000 rupees smartphone can actually serve you in the digital world. But the biggest challenge nowadays is customer awareness and security part of it. See, our applications today has to be made that foolproof so that the person at the end of the line, what you call the antodaya, the end of the line, the person, he is not befooled of his money. See, it's in a digital world, it takes just only one click, one smart SMS with a .ly link with a shortened URL, or a application that is deployed on his keyboard itself, a layover app. Okay, that only takes one click for all the money for the poor guy who was probably 1,000 rupees in his account to be robbed of it. So that our applications should be made that foolproof so that the person at the end of the day does not suffer. The UI UX should be that good so that with this country, with these diversified languages and the literacy part of it, so that the person at the end of the line can actually, from that UI UX, he is able to navigate those apps. And end of the day, he's the company who is serving the app, his goals are met, the person at the end is secure, and the government's goal of digitalizing this economy is actually met.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Casey, would you like to share something just before we wrap up?
Not much, because most of the things are spoken, like, so, but it's
All right. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your thought-provoking insights about the banking sector and the new age technologies. And thank you for joining this discussion titled "The Next Tech Revolution in the BFSI Space." And clearly, as you all said, financial organizations need to reinvent what they do and how they do it, whether it is managing risk or combating financial crime or empowering their employees. And all this can be done through cloud computing. That is the go-to solution for all this and more. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you to our audience for joining in and watching this very special show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.